สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ Have you ever wanted something? Perhaps you want it really badly, but at the same time you also fear it. Or perhaps you already have that which you wanted for so long, but now you fear losing it. Why is it that we sometimes seem to get in our own way and trip ourselves over such that the thing which we literally now have in the grip of our hands just seems to fall away and we lose it? We could call this self-sabotage. And I think this is a topic worth exploring and discussing. But I do want to lay the proper framework for communicating this topic, and therefore I think it's appropriate to split this into two videos or two parts. So here today in part one, we'll use the help of an example to show the psychology of what's going on here, so that maybe through the example you can extrapolate some key lessons from it and really self-reflect and contemplate and see in what areas of your life are you perhaps doing something similar. You see what I mean? And also do be sure to check out my previous few videos, especially the previous 3 or 4 clips, because they are laying the important foundations and building up nicely to this topic today. As I'm sure you can guess, it has a lot to do with limiting beliefs, looking back into the past, and fear. And also wanting to control, needing to control, desiring control of outside circumstances, control of somebody else, control of this, that, this, and that, but not from a place of wisdom and clarity, but rather from a place of your own emotional reactivity. Okay, and why is it that self-sabotage is, we could say, the perfect storm of the coming and mixing together of limiting beliefs, negative thinking, negative attitudes, black and white thinking, which is extreme thinking, there's no middle ground, and also wanting or desiring control of other things. Okay? Now, I've thought a lot about what example I want to use in today's video, and I think that the easiest one or the most clear one that most of us can relate to would be the example of a relationship, a romantic relationship, okay? But I must emphasize before we continue on that this video is not at all a relationship advice, okay? Not at all a video on relationship advice. I'm merely using the example in this hypothetical example or imaginary example to illustrate some key psychological concepts to explain what's going on here, right? Because many relationships have important context to it, dynamics to it, that you can't just simplify it like that, okay? And maybe one partner is manipulative, is toxic, or is controlling, or is lying and deceptive, or abusing the other partner's trust, and therefore don't take this as relationship advice. I'm assuming that the other partner, there's nothing wrong with them. I'm just focusing on the person in the example. Okay? Hopefully you can extrapolate from the example and maybe see in what other areas of your life maybe are you also engaging in a similar unhelpful pattern or a similar line of thinking that would lead to this perfect storm of self-sabotage. Okay, so let's dive into it. The example of relationship. Let's say this person in our hypothetical imagined example wants a romantic partner and is close to achieving it. It's close to really starting a wonderful romantic relationship. They've met somebody new, and that new potential partner seems to be a promising person. They seem to get along with each other well. They seem to be a good, trustworthy person. Okay? and they're starting to learn more about each other, and it's a wonderful, beautiful period. But let's say this person has had a few rough experiences in love before. Maybe they were let down by a previous partner. Maybe they were betrayed. Maybe they were cheated on. Maybe their ex-partner abused their trust. Maybe their ex-partner was manipulative or toxic or narcissistic, whatever it may be. Or maybe it didn't have to do with a previous relationship. Maybe this person simply, as a result of the social circle that he or she has, wherever they look, wherever he or she looks, they're just people arguing and fighting and relationships ending badly. So maybe this gives the impression that love is difficult. Relationships are hard. It all ends in a divorce anyways, whatever it may be. Okay. So I guess you can see where I'm going here. This person is, in our example, is about to enter into a new potential relationship with limiting beliefs. Let's say this limiting belief has the tone or attitude that says, all men are cheaters. Women can't be trusted. It's bound to end badly. So first of all, do you notice the negative thinking here? The negative attitude? And what is the psychology behind it? Why would they be negative when something potentially good is about to unfold before their very eyes? Notice that? Because logically speaking, this new potential partner, this new person they recently met, has nothing to do with previous experiences, wouldn't you say? They're not the same person, right? So it would be unfair to the new person to use previous experiences to frame and judge and label and expect from, to draw expectations from based on past unfortunate circumstances. See what I mean? Okay. Again, this is not relationship advice, okay? I'm merely trying to explain the psychology of negativity. Let's look at this in more detail. Let's think about it. Okay. The negative attitude, what it really boils down to is this person, in our example, is really saying that I've been hurt before. Wouldn't you agree? I've been hurt before. I've been hurt before really badly. And I cannot allow this to happen again. The negative thinking or the negative attitude is therefore, in one sense, a defense mechanism. Because think about it. Put yourself in that person's shoes, right? If I dare to really be hopeful and really be positive and really expect that this may be it, this may be the relationship of my dreams, the love of my life, if I dare to pour my heart out and be vulnerable with this new person, but then they don't turn out that way. They turn out to be a lying pig. They turn out to be a manipulative person. They turn out to be a selfish person, whatever it may be, right? Then I would feel really bad, really hurt all over again, and I cannot accept that. I cannot allow that to happen. Notice that? Notice the psychology behind the negative thinking and attitude here. So this leads to the second observation in this example. Let's say, in addition to the negativity, this person is always jumping back and forth between black and white. For example, this person is thinking that their new potential partner that they just met is such a kind-hearted, good person. They think like this one moment. The next moment, they think to themselves, that must not be true. They must be lying. It's too good to be true. You notice this black and white thinking? This person's really good or really bad. There's no in-between. It's extreme thinking, and it's jumping back and forth. We could call this black and white thinking. There's no middle ground. What is the psychological reason here? What is the psychology behind it? The psychological reason here for black and white thinking is that person does not like uncertainty. What's really going on here is people who think in an extreme way or think in a black and white way, what they're really doing is they're really trying to assess and get some sense of understanding and fixed control over the subject matter, which is why it's black and white and it's extreme. There's no middle ground. That person does not like the discomfort that comes with uncertainty, because human beings are dynamic, right? We're complex, and we all have flaws, and therefore you can't just simply claim to understand every intricate detail accurately, especially under such a short time of knowing each other, right? So this is the psychology behind black and white or extreme thinking. It reflects the fact that that individual does not like the discomfort that comes with uncertainty. Uncertainty meaning that you cannot yet know for sure what the answer is. In other words, it means that you dislike and you cannot tolerate, you cannot cope with the emotions of discomfort, the emotions around uncertainty. Notice that? So again, number 1, negative thinking. Number 2, black and white thinking. Okay. So then, this leads to the third part, which in one sense they really all come together, but just for simplicity's sake, okay? This leads to the third part. Let's say this person in our example continues in their relationship building with their new potential partner. They go on dates, and maybe now they're about to enter into a relationship and become boyfriend, girlfriend, or become partners. Okay. But now, because this person still has some baggage from the past. And remember, in our previous videos, looking back into the past in this way is you're literally giving your power away. Because you're looking back into the past and you haven't really made peace with it. You haven't truly accepted it or embraced it. And therefore, it still has power over you in the form of the fear that you create around it. In the form of the limiting beliefs that you create around it. You notice that? You notice that? Okay. So, now that this person has a new potential partner that they seem to really want and seems to be really promising, but yet they carry the limiting belief and the negative thinking, negative attitude, and the black and white thinking or extreme thinking, this leads to a third part. Because they do not like the emotions around discomfort or uncertainty, they will therefore want to be over-controlling. And when you engage in over-controlling behaviors, what you're demonstrating is you're demonstrating neediness. Wouldn't you agree? And neediness would communicate to the new person as an unattractive trait. It makes the other person on edge. It potentially makes them feel uncomfortable because they feel that you need something from them. See? They feel that you want love from them. You want to control them to be the way that you see fit and under your grip, under your hands. But remember, this is really all nothing more than the result of inner emotional reactivity that this individual in our example has not yet truly learned to master. You notice that? So now we have 3 things going on here. And of course, in practice, there are many, many more things, but I just want to illustrate some simple concepts and examples here. Negative thinking from the place or as a result of the defense mechanism, right? So you're thinking negative because you fear letting yourself go. You fear hoping for the best. You fear being optimistic and expecting good things. Because if you expect those things but they don't come true, you'll feel really, really hurt, really, really bad. That's the reason for negative thinking. This then leads to black and white thinking. He must be really good. She must be really flawed. I knew it. There must be something behind the scenes. It's too good to be true. Or this is the woman of my dreams, the man of my dreams. See? Black and white thinking. There's no middle ground. Because why? What is the reason for black and white thinking? That person fears uncertainty. The discomforting emotions that they create around uncertain situations. This leads to then controlling behaviors, neediness expressing itself. And you can see how when these three things come together, they can lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy of self-sabotage. See? Eventually, the relationship might lead to arguments because one side, in the example here of this hypothetical imagined person, really has insecurities that they haven't really truly mastered yet, haven't truly owned yet, haven't truly overcome or made peace with or accepted or embraced, right? Or transcended, whichever word you want to use. You notice that? So somebody who's new, who's fresh, that they have met, who's got nothing to do with a previous bad relationship, right? Who is genuinely, for the sake of an assumption, for the sake of an example, is genuinely a good, kind-hearted person, now leads to this person in our example eventually pushing or driving that new potential partner away, all because of his or her insecurities. And this is how self-sabotage works. This is an example of how self-sabotage works. Now, again, this topic is difficult to convey because there are so many examples and so many ways that this can play out. But the key message that I want to point you towards is, do you notice that self-sabotage, regardless of the way that it plays out or regardless of the reason, really boils down to the same thing? Some insecurity or some some fear that one has not learned to master. See? And fears and limiting beliefs are closely related. Again, be sure to check out the previous few videos if you want to dive into that specifically. Okay. So here in part 1, I hope that you can extrapolate from this hypothetical example how maybe perhaps in some area of your life you also think negatively, have a negative attitude, and really question it, really contemplate it, really self-reflect on it. Why do I have that negative attitude? What function is it serving me, and what is it costing me? Why do I tend to think in a black and white way, jumping back and forth between different conclusions, and there seems to be no middle ground? Oh, maybe it's because I really dislike the uncertainty. And maybe now because of these two things, now I'm overanalyzing, I'm brooding, I'm trying to think about this in 100 different ways, 1,000 different ways, in an attempt to get some clear picture, some clear understanding. But it sounds good in theory, but in practice, it only leads to more suffering and stress and anxiety, right? So this is why I have that desire to control my partner. This is why I have my desire to control the external situation, because I fear my emotions that would come up if what I had hoped for would fail or would not happen or would fall away from the grip of my hands. Okay? So again, I emphasize this is not relationship advice. I'm just merely using the example here because I think it's easiest to see clearly what's going on. I wanted merely to explain the psychological concepts. And in this part 1, in this video, just diving into 3 simple things that oftentimes explain or lead to self-sabotage. Negative thinking, black and white thinking, and desiring control. Okay, but again, they all come from some limiting belief, some fear that you haven't truly mastered yet, that one hasn't truly mastered yet. And this topic goes deep. Of course, this applies to various domains of life, and perhaps you can relate to this in some way. Certainly, I can. I can see that I have work to do as well, because limiting beliefs are the result of looking at something and holding on to it in a way that doesn't really empower us, doesn't really help us or serve us to move forward in a lighthearted and wise way. Okay, so think about that, and we'll continue in the next video on how to apply some of the practices that we always talk about, how to apply self-awareness, how to apply and challenge these limiting beliefs in order to overcome the issue of self-sabotage. I hope this was valuable for you. Please let me know what you think. Share with me your thoughts. Maybe you can relate to it in some way. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too. If you like the video, please do give me a like and subscribe, or share the video. It will be very helpful and I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. สวัสดีครับ